for joining us here at the podcast.
Yeah,
On the way podcast. We're setting up, hanging out. It is.
We're going for it.
That's what we're going for right now.
On the way
Podcast
podcast.
on the way?
No, on the way podcast.
On the way podcast.
Show some respect. Hey, but we're so glad it's just starting wild.
Already.
We're so glad you guys are with us today. My name is Brandt. I'm the creative director here at Church on the Way. I am joined by Whitney Martinez, who is our communications director, and we have a special guest with us today just to kind of kick off today. And we should probably just right off the bat get names straight.
We should get,
because we call
What's
this
the lower
person.
third gonna say?
I was going to say Paco.
We don't do lower thirds here.
That's
This is
untrue.
live,
I'll
baby.
show some respect.
This is live. No, but joining us today is Aaron Quevedo, who is the LD or the lighting designer here at Church on the Way. But we call him Paco, which we did not ascribe to him. You said this is what I want to be called.
Okay, I didn't quite say
I don't think I knew that,
I
actually.
didn't quite say
Oh
that.
no, he.
I kind of wondered where it came from.
No,
True.
well, we don't gotta get into the origin of Paco.
The lore is deep.
Okay.
Importantly, there's another Aaron on staff in the media department.
Yes.
And so, and we're on headset at the same time. Wasn't gonna work.
Right.
wasn't gonna happen. We tried for a little bit, and Aaron, yes. And
So
we
many
both
people
turned around,
answering, yeah.
and it's- yeah.
No, but we're super stoked to have you on and to get to talk about some stuff. Also, big shout out to our producer Kesley over there in the booth. If we had a camera, we'd cut to it.
Oh, you gotta have a Kesley.
We
cam
do need
for
a
We
sure.
Kesley
should have a
cam.
Kes cam.
A little.
I got you.
But yeah, so what we're doing with this podcast for the next several weeks, we're going to be releasing an episode each week where we just talk about a little bit more, I guess, the content
Yeah.
of Sunday, and also just try to apply it. Not necessarily in a more practical way, but just in a different light.
Yeah. That's what you did there.
Because we just talked about the light of the world.
You're right. Yeah, so we're going to go through the I Am series with Pastor Tim, right? I am the light of the world. I am the bread of life. And we'll have our different guests and we'll get to talk about how that applies to their lives.
Yeah. But for you, it ended up being that...
Pretty
spot on.
Yeah.
Pretty spot on. Yeah, because like when we do I Am the Good Shepherd, we're not bringing like a rancher on.
You should.
If we had
Los
a rancher,
Angeles.
maybe we would.
Find one.
Harder to
That's
come by.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But so we started on Sunday with I Am the Light of the World. And Pastor talked about, I loved his opening question, just if someone shone light into the dark, shame-filled places of your life, like how would you feel, basically?
Yeah.
And it's a great question. Because,
Wild way to open a sermon.
Yeah,
by the way.
Yes.
to really just
No, I
come in
loved
with
it.
that.
Came
Just
in
like-
hard.
Yeah.
But as we start to look at I Am the Light, you work with light. So real quick, give us like a little bit of background kind of on what you do, why lighting is so much a part of what you do and who you are. And then we'll kind of get into some stuff.
Yeah. So this is a weird question. It's like asking me, like, why do you breathe? It's like, because this is just my life now.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
But no. So I mean, I grew up in the church. My entire life. My parents work here. I've gone through the full. Our youth pastor used to talk about when your faith at some point needs to not be your parents' faith, but
Right.
be your own faith. Had all these great camp experiences, a lot of them through production lighting in one way or another. When I was like fourth grade, where hadn't touched a light before.
Yeah.
Like, none of this. I was at like a kids camp, and like we're talking like I had maybe run Pro Presenter for a couple Sundays.
Okay.
In like again kids camp, fourth grade.
Yeah.
And they gave like a call to ministry type of thing. But it wasn't like just like pastors. It was like I forget exactly what it was, but I remember specifically like telling my leader like, yeah, I feel like called to do tech in church. I with no
Context for
context for
that.
what that means and what that and I've gone through different seasons where I've kind of like not forgotten but like that kind of falls to back of mind or whatever, and then now where I'm I do lighting design professionally, freelance. I do through my high school, I'm involved with a lot of the different tech aspects, lighting specifically here. I'm a lighting designer, and how much that's kind of influenced my life. Not even, it's not like every decision I make is like, okay, well, this one time in fourth grade,
Right.
it's like this I feel is what my calling is in life, is to serve the church and glorify God through my creativity in general, but lighting has been the gift that I've been able to kind of,
develop
and I've had other people develop in me over the course of the last, really the last like 4 or 5 years here. But yeah, so I am the lighting designer here, and we, generally my job is we're creating the atmosphere for people to worship in,
right?
And mitigating distractions in that, but also creating that environment where like I always come back to some of my like camp experiences, as a youth student going up to camp and seeing this incredible light show, for lack of a better word, and kind of realizing that like creating those experiences are obviously you go up to camp for God to do incredible things.
Yeah.
And he will do incredible things regardless of the production quality of the camp.
Fair.
Which is something we
The question mark there is like, God will move regardless of the humanity of the situation.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
Like he's capable of moving if it was just a person shouting from a tree stump to a meadow
100%.
full of individuals.
100%. And as
It does help.
creatives, we have to remind, at least I have to remind myself of that a lot,
Yeah.
because you can get so caught up in the production. Is everything perfect?
Yes.
Is this the way that I envisioned it, kind of thing, that
Yeah.
you lose sight of what we're actually here to do is, point people to Jesus.
Right.
But yeah, giving some I've had the opportunity to go back to a lot of those summer camps that I kind of fell in love with this at, and being able to give that experience to other kids my age has been super fulfilling. And
That's
like
right.
we've run some of the coolest shows up there. But yeah. So
I love that too, because when people hear the word calling, I feel like they very often just default to pastor. And I think that what we do is both a calling, it is worship, it is creativity, it is all of those things. And I think you can really see that. Whitney and I were even talking about this like before we started, like, really kind of wanting to talk with you about the fact that like you can tell if you've ever been around Paco when he's doing lighting, doing lighting when we're serving or when we're working together, it's not just a job.
Oh, no.
Like that's worship.
yeah. 100%.
And I think for all of us that have stood behind consoles through services before, we've come to some point of realizing that I am worshiping from this soundboard, from this lighting console,
100%.
from
for sure.
whatever it is.
And I've really kind of, been able to kind of grow my own personal basis for that in the last like year or so. This last summer I went up as the lighting designer for one of our camps, up at Camp Cedar Crest. Big shout out. But I was, I've always kind of, seen the way that I do lighting as a form of worship, and I remember a couple of times I would shadow some of our other lighting designers that we've had here over the years. And I was shadowing Victor one Sunday when Julian was here. I know we're just name dropping all over the place. But I said to our technical director at the time, I was like, wow, he's like playing that lighting board like an instrument. Like, this is like this is not he's feeling this. He's not just like pushing buttons and making light happen. And so fast forward to years later, I had a lot of I had this kind of I would always when it would come up like what's your biggest fear, I would always say like losing my ability to hear or losing my ability to see or like my hands or something like that, like because like this being able to serve this way is easily the most fulfilling, most joy-filled thing I ever get to participate in. And And my thought was like losing that ability would crush me because I wouldn't know what to do. I'm going to college for this. I've pointed everything in my life towards doing, production. And like if I didn't have, that, like I don't know, I'd like have to start over again. And then we had Caleb Quay was playing
Guitar.
Who is an insane musician who used to
Played with Elton John. Is Carlos Santana's favorite guitar player. Like crazy cool stuff.
And he is a completely separate, incredible testimony.
Yeah.
That he's literally produced hour-long documentaries about. Like he's got very spiritually strong person. And afterwards, I people were asking him questions because he had been giving words and speaking throughout the camp and really just he was a very strong spiritual backbone for that camp specifically.
Sure.
And I went to him and I said, you do your form of worship is similar in that like your hands. Do you ever think about this? Where like if you lost the ability to play, does that ever bother you? And he basically said, no, because I know that God gave me this ability and that he could take it away in a moment, and I'm aware of that. But he also said that when he plays, he gave me this Hebrew word zamar, which is to praise God on a stringed instrument. But that's the praising God through an instrument. Like the lighting console is my instrument. Like and that moment kind of really gave me a lot of clarity in terms of what we're trying to do.
Right.
And it is, praising God through our form of worship, production, lighting, whatever. Yeah. And so that's kind of been the way that I've been approaching, especially doing lighting in the church in the last, because, we can do some crazy things and make flashy and,
Totally.
we can make things look cool all day, but are we doing it in a way that is, again, pointing people towards God? So that's kind of my foundation of how I approach church lighting. And,
So far you've been in a high school environment or here at the church being able to do that. And now that you're a graduating senior looking to work purely professionally and likely in areas that are not going to be a worship setting, how are you taking that like mentality? Like how you've been thinking about that?
Right. It's really interesting. I've also had the opportunity to be in a lot of professional settings as of right now, and I've had some pretty just incredible opportunities and people who've given me those opportunities to do those kinds of things. And the biggest thing that I've found is, again, another thing that PK, our youth pastor, used to say is, you may be the only Bible somebody ever reads. Yeah. Like your actions and the way that you live your life may be the only representation of Jesus that somebody's going to be exposed to, because especially, some in some of the, theater environments, production environments, which are very secular that I'm a part of, like, a lot of my friends who are working these shows with me have never been to a church before, and might not ever be in a church if I am not, living my life in a way that is, glorifying to him,
right?
But also, it's about the relationships that you're building with people. I've had a number of conversations about church, about God, that have just come up just because I've been genuine friends with people, and God kind of does the rest. I have so many stories of people who I would have had no idea that were even had a maybe a Christian background and had some church hurt is something I kind of run into a lot. Things like that, where like I would have never thought I would be having this conversation about church and about God and about these things, but just kind of being that light in in the workplace, at school, wherever, has, and then again, letting God do the rest, because there have been a number of times where I'm like, I really don't even know what to do or say in this scenario. Your turn, God.
So you've been like freely vocal about that you have lighting experience at your church. That you go to church.
And again, a lot of the time, production is the thing that is the common ground. Like I can show, some of the things that we've, like, a lot of when we went up to do men's camp at Cedar Crest. We loaded in this whole lighting rig, and it was a whole thing, and it was it was a lot, but it was also like I came back and was like, hey guys, look at this thing that I just did. Like, look at the rig that we put up.
Okay.
Like, look at, this is how we did this. And we're kind of, talking shop about it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that it's in a church. Like, it's still a pretty impressive show that we're pulling off here.
Yeah,
And we do
totally.
some impressive production here, if I do say so myself. And having that common ground to begin with is always cool because I think at our church we are operating we hold ourselves to a high standard of production, and kind of being able to show that off is sometimes the in to that further conversation about God. But yeah, really just building those relationships with people and making sure that they know that you're there for them and trying to be genuine, because also there's a lot of just fake people, especially in high school. It's like that's just how it is. And kind of trying, because I know when I find somebody that I can really depend on and trust on and know that is going to be there for me, that's so refreshing. And trying to be that person and kind of, being that light is the biggest thing. You don't have to be like, because then like when I've worked 50 shows with you and I've built this trust with you and trust you in return, and then I can say, hey, we have this show at church, or we have this worship night at church, do you want to come? Sure, I'll show up and stand in the booth. Like, that's and I've done that, and we've we've got rehearsal for a worship night tonight that a couple of my tech friends are coming to.
Cool.
Oh,
just just to hang out.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
I think that's cool though, simply because like the idea that when I was working in youth ministry at my parents' church, the youth ministry was called Alive, and the tagline or whatever you want to call it was belong, believe, become, and the order was important. You can belong to the church or the body before you believe in Christ, and ultimately we want to help you become more like him. Like the order of that is important. You can come hang out at church. It is not a prerequisite to know Christ to come here. In fact, we would hope that a lot of people walking through the doors actually don't know Christ and are wanting to learn more about him. And so I think the fact that you live your life in a way, that you operate in such a way that you kind of exude this authenticity to who you are I think that is attractional by nature to people, because I feel like that's a lot of what, I'm not even going to just say high schoolers. I feel like people are looking for authenticity, for truth. And so to find that in a person, I think is important. And then in the opportunity that it does create for these non-churched or previously churched and now church hurt individuals to be like, oh, I'm interacting with someone that represents this place that might have hurt me at one point, and I'm now realizing that there's still good there, or that there's still people that aren't that thing that they attribute to the church or whatever it would be. I love that, because I think if people were truly to spend any amount of time with you, they would see that like that's the same on show, off show, load in, load out, like whatever it is. The way you present yourself as a person is truly accurate, right? It's not like it's not like you're gonna work through a couple of layers of Aaron and then get to the real Aaron.
This is why we keep you around.
Yeah, thank you.
But I think as you're looking at, as like Whitney was saying, you've been in a high school environment, a lot of your experience has been here at the church. You're getting ready to step out into the professional space, the college space, and you're living that out. You were talking about the way that those opportunities have just kind of popped up to where you were kind of like, look, Jesus, this is where I need you to step in, because I can do lights, but I'm not necessarily here to preach. What have you found that maybe has been the thing that causes the person to at some point ask,
that's interesting,
why or what, or hey, you're different, like
Sure. I think it's not even, I think it all kind of goes back to that trust that you build with people.
Sure.
And that, having those relationships and having that trust with somebody that, and doing that with your actions and not just your words. It's a different thing to say, hey, let me know if you ever need anything, and be great.
Right.
But then, if you get the phone call at 1 a.m. and you're not answering,
Right.
that's a different thing. And trying to, I've been fortunate enough that I've found those people in my life that I can really depend on, and that I know, if it's a wild hour of the night, they will answer.
Yeah.
Things like that. And I've just had the opportunity to really be there for people in some of those moments. And I think sometimes it's not even because when you're having a moment of kind of desperation and exasperation, you're gonna go to somebody that can or you think can help you,
Right.
that you trust at least is not going to leave you undelivered or whatever.
Right.
And that's not even. I wouldn't attribute even that to me. I would attribute that to God, because a lot of the time I'm turning right around and going, I don't know what to do in this moment, and just praying, or really there have been a few times where one of my friends or somebody I've acquainted with comes to me with something, and I go, you don't know what to do right now. I don't know what to do right now. Can I pray for you?
Wow. Yeah.
And that's never going to return void. That's never
totally.
That's never going to not help in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
And even just those moments where, we work in a very high stress environment in general.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Production, and that's one of the reasons I appreciate so much being able to come in on Sunday morning and do this with you guys, because there's no stress, there's no yelling, there is no, for me, there's no deadlines. There's just kind of, I know you guys have deadlines and work very hard.
Sure.
Appreciate all of you. But, we, especially, and I'm in a very interesting environment at school where I've been in the tech program for 4 years now. And so we're running all of these shows that come through our auditorium. So dance, theater, band.
Yep.
Sometimes we're touring with our show choir.
Oh, cool.
So we're doing a lot of different things, and that's a lot of long hours together and a lot of pressure, because we're still kids, but we're holding ourselves to, and people and adults are holding us to this high standard of production.
Yeah.
And that, weighs heavy on people.
Sure.
And I've had moments where that's just I've had to take a step back. This is just too much. This is a lot.
Yeah.
Because we're also taking AP tests and
still have
having to
school.
pass.
Yeah.
School. So there's no shortage of opportunities to be there for people, and that doesn't even have to be anything big. That needs to be, hey, have you drank water today? Cool. Here's a water.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Things like that. Hey, have you eaten? Cool. We're gonna go grab food before we have rehearsal.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And that's not. And I've found some of the most incredible people in general in production. I've also found some of the most incredibly dislikable people in general in production. It's just
You
how
got both
it is.
sides of the coin.
It's just how it is. And finding my people and being there for them. I don't think there's any one thing or one thing I've said. Really, every story that I can think of where I've been able to kind of, spread the gospel in some way or be there for somebody in some way has been completely unrelated. Something that I could not have possibly orchestrated on my own.
Right.
And it's just these moments that have come up that just
That's
to be a
awesome.
blessing to people.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So you're talking about being the light and stuff. When Pastor Tim asked that question at the top of the sermon this Sunday about how you feel when you have light shown on your darkness, your dark spots, what was your reaction? How would you answer that?
I mean, I think the initial reaction is no, put the light away. It's
No, thank you.
No. Or he's not talking about my dark spots.
Yeah, fair.
No, I think that is definitely something that that's something different for everybody. And that is, you know, another thing where I've kind of found you never know what somebody else is going through or not, or not saying or hiding or, you know, things like that. And really that to me is like, again, I've had a number of moments where people have come to me with one thing or another. I was like, oh, I had no idea about that. Let me, you know, let's, you know, get the help you need, or like, who do I need to tell about this? Or things like that. There's a variety of different places that I can go to with that, but yeah.
I think there's some cool stuff too because one of the things I love is working in tech and being a creative director, being a production person in and of my own training before kind of taking more of a leadership role.
Yeah.
I've always loved getting to learn about stuff. And I think as much as you're like, over the last 3 years, like I've really been learning a lot more, you know, you've been more involved with stuff right around the time that I came on and started bringing you in for stuff. You were already around, but just really kind of having you lean in there. I've learned so much about lighting and stuff from you, because there would be a lot that it's like, put me at an audio console, talk to me about video, you know, drums, worship, different things like that. I would feel super confident. I can tell you what I like about lighting, but I wouldn't have been able to do it until we started interacting more. One of the things that I mean, I think it ties in here. Maybe other people don't. You were talking to me one time about and I just need you to explain the science of it, and then I'll tie it in. You were talking to me one time about the science of haze.
Sure.
Haze, for those of you that are interested, is the smoke, the fog, the atmosphere, the whatever you want to call it in our worship space and the main sanctuary on a Sunday morning. But you were talking about what actually makes it so that we can see the light beams with the haze, like the interaction there.
All right. So haze is a fluid that you put into a hazer that makes this fine mist, particularly in the air, that makes you be able to see a light beam. So like right now, you can't see the light in the air as it's traveling you just see it hitting your face, right? If we, you know, had in the living room, if we just had all of our lights on, you would just see where they're landing and not what they're doing in the air. Haze, basically, it's refracting off of those particles in the air. The light is refracting off of those particles in order for you to be able to see it. So if you're standing where the light is and looking out to where it's pointing, you wouldn't see it as well as if you were on the other side of it where it's refracting out. Where are we going with this?
So one of the things that I love about lighting, even in what he just explained, is the light will move from point A to point B. You can see where it starts, you can see where it finishes, but everything it's doing along the way can't be seen until it's interacting with something. Hey-o. Right?
Okay.
So,
Pastor Brandt.
So the idea that as the organ stabs just on the phone. No, but the idea that as the Lord works with us, as his light interacts with me, you, that's how other people who don't know about the light are seeing it played out, right? It's like, so everybody that just heard that knew nothing about haze didn't know why they could see the light. They're just like, oh, I see the light and my brain tells me I can't breathe. You can. But the idea is that as it passes through something, as it's interacting with something, other people can see and appreciate the light, the beauty, what it's doing, all of that stuff. We, in the analogy, are the haze, right? Yes.
We got that.
Be the haze.
We brought it back. We brought it back in. More haze, more praise.
More.
Perfect.
But I think with your gifting, with each of our giftings, with anybody that's watching, with your giftings, as you operate in the gifting, specifically, you talked about calling earlier, specifically the God-given giftings. In doing that, you become this thing that the Lord's light, right, refracts off of or reflects off of, and people can see, whether they recognize it or not. Like, all of us can identify people that it's like, that's a God-given talent that you have. You're not just good at this, you are exceptional at this because the Lord put something inside of you.
Yes.
Those elements in our life, I think, are just so cool because it doesn't have to be, for some people it is, but it doesn't have to be speaking and communicating a message. It can be sound, music.
Behind the scenes.
And it's
Behind
so
the
cool to
scenes,
see those things in other people that, you know, when I've been, like I said, I've been with tech, I've been in the program for 4 years. We've had 4 different teachers. So we've been kind of all over the place, but the students have remained the same. And every year there's another group of students that we're training up to this, you know, semi-professional standard that we're holding ourselves to. And every year being able to see, you know, that kind of like sparkle in somebody's eyes, like, oh, you have this ability. Like, I know that in 2 years you're going to be an incredible leader.
Right.
Now, how do I get you there?
Yeah.
Is so cool. Like that is another one of the most fulfilling, you know, moments of this job is being able to pass that on to the next generation, because like I know like you especially have taken that time to foster some of those things in me and give me some of those opportunities, and I've had no shortage of people who have given me ridiculous opportunity that I probably didn't really deserve, but like, you know, that's how you grow, and being able to see that start to foster in other people has been so awesome.
That's right. It is fun to see you just have so much joy in your calling.
Yeah.
And you're doing like lighting for worship here, like you are active. I can see that you're actively worshiping.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It's cool. No, I love getting to sit and talk just with friends and people in general, but getting to hear about how some of this stuff is not just, oh yeah, I learned this skill and I do this thing, or I'm just punching in, punch out, or I'm just doing a job. It's I felt called to minister. It's just a lighting console, not a message, or it's, you know, tech and producing and directing. It's not necessarily writing sermons or books or different things like that. And I think that's so cool because I really believe in tapping into the skill sets of young people, the youth.
Yes.
Like, it's easy to say the youth are our future, you know, right? But to actually say, yeah, the youth are our future, so we're going to give them the shot now, not when we need them to finally step up, is the difference, right? It's like huge. We have a place where we have fantastic gear. We have really great people that operate it that are also capable teachers. And we're in an environment you're talking about that's not no stress, it's low stress in comparison to other production spaces. But the fact that we can stop, slow down, teach, instruct, and give what would be looked at as a big opportunity, like that's 1,000-person auditorium, right? Like that's a bigger space with more stuff than a lot of people would get to use on a week-to-week basis. 100%. And so just the at-bat that you can offer to someone to be like, hey, I believe you have a chance here, go for it. They're looking at that as like, oh my gosh, this is the biggest space I've ever done this thing in. But we're able to make them feel supported. And I've loved getting to be a part of that and getting to see youth students not just step into their own, but then immediately turn around and go, okay, who's next? Really like, who does this go to after me? And I love that.
The fact that I we're going to have a little bit of a pastor's kid moment here. The fact that I was able, like, in junior high and high school to come in, like, over summers and things where I was out of school and my mom was working, I was like, oh, I'll go sit in the sanctuary and play with the lights. Right. The fact that I can come in and just do that and teach myself those things and learn that, that then directly, you know, years down the road, I just did my first arena show at the Long Beach Convention Center.
Wow. Crazy.
Directly because of some of those things that I learned here. Just being able to, you know, start learning those things and not have the consequences of, you know, the world crashing down.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Nice. Yeah. Well, hey, Paco, Aaron.
Yeah, man.
Thanks so much for sitting in with us today. We're going to be doing these, like we said, each week. We're going to put one of these out that kind of refers back to the sermon from Sunday. We've got a couple of guest speakers through this series. Pastor Tim's doing a couple of them as well. And so we'll just be bringing different people in each week. Whitney and I will get to talk with them. And we hope that this conversation and the other ones to come are something that you guys enjoy. Go ahead, Follow the YouTube page if someone sent you this link and you don't already. Click around on some of the other messages if you want to know like what message we're talking about, because you just happened to find this. You can go to our recent sermons and you can click on this past Sunday's message. But we love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we will see you next week.
Bye.